This is a very interesting comparison between Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman. I have had many requests for this one, and up until now, I thought it was kind of a waste of time. This is 1993, probably 3 weeks prior to the Olympia for Dorian Yates, and of course the 2003 Mr. Olympia Ronnie Coleman. Now, why have I not done this comparison before? The camera angles are so off in this one that it distorts the size. Of course, the upper body for Dorian Yates is going to appear to be larger because the camera is much higher, I believe, and the camera angle for Ronnie Coleman much lower. So it favors his lag size. But what the heck? I've gotten several requests for this, so I might as well do it. And the first thing that I do notice, obviously, is the size of Dorian Yates. Massive, just massive. Let's have another comparison because I like to bring you guys as many as I can. And obviously the size, I don't want to have to reiterate this every time. The size is going to be distorted. Upper body larger for Dorian. But having said that, look at the size of Dorian's forearms. No distortion at all would cover up for the size difference. I mean, Dorian's forearms are as big as Ronnie Coleman's biceps. Well, maybe not. But one thing that I do notice about Dorian Yates, he is as dry, every bit as dry as Ronnie Coleman, maybe even drier. And that's one thing that early 90s, they really tried to get as conditioned as they could. And then Ronnie Coleman just exploded in size. I'm sure if Dorian had Ronnie Coleman in his sights, he would have maintained that size. And that's as dry as he would have needed to be, I think, to defeat Ronnie Coleman. Let's have a look at the front lat spreads. Wow, look at the size of Dorian Yates. My word. Of course, the lags, they're not as big as Coleman's. They're never going to be. But look at the upper body. It says Ronnie Coleman was 287. That's the magical number. It's foolishness. I heard Jay Cutler went on a big rant thinking he was there. He was backstage in 2003. He watched Ronnie Coleman weigh himself a couple of times, and it said 277. Who is this person that made up this magical 287? And I heard 295. Foolishness. Anyway, I heard Dorian Yates was 279 or something like this during this photo shoot session. Either way, you can see that mass, dryness. I think he would have mopped the floor with Ronnie Coleman. Let's have a look at the side shots. Wow, is Ronnie Coleman, he is massive, but look at Dorian Yates. Is he ever massive in the chest? I've never seen Dorian Yates look so good. And you know what? He may have been a little overcooked for his events. He didn't need to get that cooked. I think he was cooked to perfection right here. Ronnie Coleman, he was a little undercooked, if you ask me, when you compare him with Dorian Yates. But like I said about the distortion of the size, very, very upsetting. Let's have a look at the side tricep. Now, I couldn't get the lower body for Ronnie Coleman. Few and far between are good pictures of his side tricep. Not the best pose for him at all. Ronnie Coleman, he was losing this one anyway. Dorian Yates would have mopped the floor with him. Any version, especially this one. Dorian Yates, this here, 3 weeks prior to the Olympia, this was probably his best version, even better than at the Olympia. Now, this is what we've all been waiting for, the back developments, and look how thick Dorian Yates is in the lat region. Now, of course, the upper traps are going to be bigger for Ronnie Coleman. They always will be, but notice the lower traps. This is just immense size and dryness. Ronnie Coleman very dry in the lags, I will say that, and massive. Not in the calves, though. Just Dorian Yates looks like a big He-Man action figure. Look at the lats. He would flatten, I'm telling you, flatten Ronnie Coleman if he came in at this condition. They're about the same weight. Maybe even, could be even heavier would be Dorian Yates. Hard to say for sure. Here's actually another one. This one really gives you the impression of the size and thickness and just cartoonish proportions of Dorian Yates in the lower lat thickness. Not even close, Ronnie Coleman. You Ronnie Coleman minions have no chance in this one. This is really no argument. You look at the calves. I mean, he's winning on the calves alone. The only thing Ronnie Coleman has is a better trap setup in the upper traps. But you look at the overall size of Dorian Yates traps. Boys against men. Here's the rear double bicep, and this is the exact same thing when you look at the traps. And even the lower lat insertions. And speaking of dryness and conditioned and undercooked and overcooked, look at the lower backs and even in the glutes. Dorian Yates is drier. So obviously he did get a little too dry perhaps. If he was going against Ronnie Coleman though, he's in it to win. He would have came in this size. He would have flattened Ronnie Coleman, like I said before. I know this is a little bit immature to show this one of Dorian Yates. It's not even from the same photo shoot. I don't even know if it's from 93. It's a little bit, like I said, immature. But anyway, I figured I would throw in an ab and thigh. Either way, he's just as dry as Dorian, and the waistline just as small, just as tight, or tighter. Never the best shot for Ronnie Coleman, and if Dorian Yates had him through an ab and thigh into this photo shoot, you can bet that it would have been enough to defeat Ronnie Coleman. Not the best abs on Coleman. Here in the most muscular, and this is probably the most telling tale of all, Dorian Yates usually falling on the losing end of this one for sure against everybody. But that deep conditioning that he did to himself really cut into the size of his chest, his delts, and just the overall mass. Those legs as well. I don't know if he's defeating Ronnie Coleman in this one, though. Ronnie is big. But if you really take a close look, Ronnie, I hate to say it, he just looks kind of soft in comparison. I do believe this would be a blowout. I think if you took the 2003 Ronnie Coleman and the 3 week prior to the 1993 Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates, I think Dorian would, in fact, flatten Ronnie Coleman. I don't even think it would be that difficult for him to defeat him. This is, of course, the Ronnie Coleman classic crab position, and the outer silhouette, the outer lines, probably a little bit better than Dorian. But like I said through this whole competition, Dorian, he is big, just as or more striated, drier, perhaps. Just an awesome version. So in my opinion, Dorian Yates was better than Ronnie Coleman. But that, of course, is just the opinion of one man. And I would like to hear your guys' opinions on this. Keep in mind, I did mention that the camera angles were totally off, and it did distort the size of Dorian's upper body, and of course the legs of Ronnie Coleman as well. So keep that in mind when you're bashing me about sizing these guys incorrectly. But either way, it was the dryness, and we know how big Ronnie Coleman is, and we knew how big Dorian Yates was in 93, and he was clearly much larger here. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Hit thumbs up if you did. Subscribe. Have a great day.